It's Bigfoot Collectors Club with Bryce and Michael. I know a ghost story or two. Let's do this.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Bigfoot Collectors Club, episode 46.
Lucky 46.
The show where we talk to amazing guests about their personal paranormal history and share stories of high strangeness. I'm your host, Michael McMillan. With me always is your other host,
Bryce Johnson.
And your trusty producer,
Riley Bray.
And guess what, everybody? Today is officially our 1-year anniversary.
Yay!
On October 31st,
That's
2017. Awesome. Bryce O. Johnson and Michael C. McMillan got together in the den of Bryce's home to discuss strange encounters that they've had with one another.
Yeah.
And then they erased that podcast. And then they did one about aliens and ghosts.
And thank God we found Riley, because I remember trying to set up 2 microphones, and I'm like, okay, yeah, well, that's not working. I guess we're just going to have to share one.
Yeah.
Snuggle up next to me, Mike.
We literally shared a microphone together, and it was really fun. And I was trying to figure out when we actually recorded that, what date that was. It's probably on my Instagram, and I'll find it. But it did air
probably a week before
a year
Halloween.
ago today
Yeah.
on, of course, this most blessed of holidays.
Awesome.
Halloween. Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween.
We're not going to hit it too hard because, as you know, you might be listening to this podcast during a binge fest in July.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be like, what? Halloween episode?
Yep.
But I'm picking out my 4th of July costume.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So it's not our anniversary with Riley.
True.
But it is the anniversary of the first episode of the show, episode 0. Bigfoot Collectors Club Origins,
yeah.
which is available now on iTunes. You can go back and find it. So, hey, happy birthday, Bryce.
Hey, thanks, man. Right
and
back
Riley,
at you.
happy birthday to you, too.
Hell yeah, Riley.
Happy almost birthday.
Well,
Oh, dude.
coming up on 2 weeks.
Hell yeah.
And we'll see you there. In the meantime, keep your mouth shut.
I will. I'll wait for 2 weeks.
That sexy, sexy mouth. Everybody, she's been on the Patreon feed before, and we've had that episode up as a little bit of a sampler for a while because it was so good. But she's never been in the clubhouse before. I want to welcome a very awesome guest. She is very experienced in the field of the paranormal. If you've noticed, there's been a slight trend this month where we've been bringing in people for the month of October who actually kind of know what they're talking about, or they're writing about this stuff.
Not that celebrities don't.
Yeah, not that such as people like actors and musicians don't know what they're talking about. But I don't know if you've noticed a little trend. We've had some experts on this month, and to cap it all off, we have with us tonight intuitive and medium Adela Lavine.
Yay.
Welcome to the show, Adela.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm good.
Are you so excited that you're finally on a regular episode of Bigfoot Collectors
I'm
Club?
super excited. Yeah, I totally am.
I think we should just hop right into it because last time we
Yeah.
spoke to you, I rambled on for at least an hour.
That was so fun watching you
It was fun.
ask questions. We had a blast
So,
doing that
yeah,
interview.
just to
It was like-
recap, we know Adela through our very first show guest, Pete Gardner. His wife, Susie, introduced us.
Right.
If you go back and listen to episode 1 with Pete Gardner, he talks about visiting a gallery reading with Adela, which we'll get into, I'm sure, momentarily. And then we had one early last summer, late last spring at Pete and Susie's house, and that episode is up on the Patreon. But we've never really sat down and asked Adela, what is your personal paranormal history?
Oh, geez. God, where do I pick from?
I know, right?
Pick from wherever you'd like to begin. That response is much better than I don't really have one.
Oh, okay.
So don't worry about it.
Okay, good.
And also
I'm-
for
I'm-
our guests
I'm-
that don't really have one, we love you.
Adela's
too.
like,
We
I
always
have
find something.
fucking tons. Where do I begin?
So, let's see. Are we talking things I've seen on the spirit realm or on the ET realm?
I mean,
or
we
we
would
just
like
like
both.
the witchy realm.
So first, let me ask this question. I'll help you along this
Okay,
path.
good. Yeah, help me.
What is an intuitive and medium?
Okay, so an intuitive is I mean, it's obviously similar to being psychic, but I think people perceive psychic as like mind reading, and reading people's
Like, what
minds.
color am I thinking of right now?
Blue.
And right.
Actually, it was yellow, but it's always
You
yellow.
were close.
Always yellow.
Always yellow.
So, people kind of look at it that, or, like fortune telling type of thing. And an intuitive is, obviously I can see into the future.
Oh, you can? Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Yes. Intuitive readings are, being able to look at someone's path. And the way I believe is that there's multiple timelines. And so I'm looking at the timeline you're on right now, and I can see every decision you make changes the future. So what I'm able to do is use remote viewing, which I'm sure you've heard of, to look at the future, present, and past. So remote viewing, you can look and I can see a conversation someone had with someone the night before. I can see sitting right here, look at someone's house and describe it. And the future
You can describe a house when you're in the house?
not in the house.
I was going to say, because I have that talent
that's
too.
like amazing. I wow people with that. No, I actually have done it in the past for play, to play with people and trip them out. And then I do it all the time in readings, especially in medium readings, which I'll talk about. And
I've experienced this firsthand.
yeah, so you're able to do that in the past too. So I can see someone's childhood home or things like that. So, but intuitive reading is really looking at your path and where I see it going. And I first start with looking at how you tick personally, because every person is uniquely who they are and according to how you see the world. So when a true empathic person goes into your version of the world, not my interpretation of your version of the world.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
Walk me through that just a little bit. I think I know what you mean.
So
but...
it's really, for me, literally like jumping in your skin and being you.
Okay.
Right? And
but you're not literally psychically projecting yourself into my skin.
No. You're
not possessing
I'm not
anybody.
possessing you.
Yeah.
I'm consciously seeing things through your consciousness.
And that point of view.
Your point of view. So I'm able to go, oh, he sees things like this and like that, and this is how he walks around. And we all think everyone's seeing things the same, but they're not.
Right.
And that helps.
And that's clear from some of the relationships I've been in. Anyone?
Oh my.
Exactly. Especially men seem to think, no, just kidding.
Yeah, totally.
A little bit on the ego side. Yes. No, but I mean, it's really important you do this, because the way I see people is the way you were born before people get to you, like your parents and stuff. Because the core of who we are is the core of who we are.
Right.
How we utilize it in the world is plugging into this dimension. So to me, I see it as like the body's an avatar. And when you're born, you have a spirit that goes into this avatar.
Right. It's almost like when you were a kid and you would be at the drugstore and you'd walk out with your mom and dad, and there would be those machines that had the little like quarter machines with like a little a plastic bubble that you could get a toy or a sticker out of. So what if I'm understanding you, the prize inside of that bubble is our consciousness or our soul, the purity of ourselves.
Yeah.
And the avatar is the bubble that it's delivered in, and then what happens to
And then
you,
we sew
what
it
happens to that toy after it's popped out of that bubble? That's kind of like what happens to you once your parents get a hold of you and life puts you through the ringer. Is that about right?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
I
a
nailed
very
it.
interesting analogy.
Yeah, I was wondering
I've
where you're
never
going with
used
that.
that
Interesting
one.
would be one
You
word.
landed
Very interesting and
that's what-
complicated, but interesting. And they're $1 now for those bubbles. But
Oh man, it's true. So what's the
But yeah.
difference between an intuitive and an empath, or is there a difference?
So, listen, the thing is that there's a lot of terminologies, right? And people get caught up in the terminology. But the truth is, if being an intuitive means you are kind of having a knowing about it, but you have to hone your sight. So, like, I call myself an intuitive, but I can absolutely get dates and timelines and things like that.
Okay.
You know, this is going to happen in 3 months. But the way I believe is you have free will, and people do this like, well, screw it, I'm going to do it anyway. And then I'll say, if you don't do this, this is the outcome. This is the other outcome.
That's the other timeline you will...
Possible future
Right.
that it will shift towards this direction. And I will warn you, okay, this is what's going to happen. It's not wrong or right, but you're going to experience a different set of circumstances. And so I try to kind of help people like, go, look, I'm just trying to help you avoid this dip in the road. But if you want to go in the dip, then this is what you should do as well. So empathic is people, and the term is thrown around way a lot now these days, but empathic is you feel what someone's feeling. However, if you take it to the true meaning, it's actually feeling exactly how, like I said, how you would see it.
Right.
Exactly. And nothing to do with me at all.
Right. That's what made me think of the word.
Yeah.
Because of the way you describe being intuitive and seeing something from specifically someone's point of view and their feelings.
Yes. And most people don't. They kind of put their spin on it.
Right.
And you're supposed to completely remove yourself from it completely, all your experiences of life, all the way you would have seen it, and you're truly empathically seeing it, even if you're not supposed to agree or disagree how this person is seeing it.
Got it.
And so from there, I can go, okay, this is why they're choosing to do ABC.
Because you're seeing the world the way that they see
Right.
them.
So I can see, this is why you've chosen this career. This is why you're doing this. This is why you're doing that. And then I can go from there.
And then do you have to fight the judgment from you, Adela, coming in and going, oh, this is why they're doing these things and this is why it's maybe not working out. Me, Adela, is going to say, you shouldn't do that. You should do this instead. Or are you listening to or using your intuitive insight to keep Adela out of it and listen to some sort of higher consciousness that's saying, if they do this or that, this is the outcome?
I absolutely keep myself out of it. And that's where the honing comes in, because that also has to do with, on the spiritual tip, you're being humble and honoring yourself as a service. And so I absolutely find it the most fun to me. People don't get it. I don't stay there. I don't invade you. I don't take any energy. I'm like, wow, this is cool. This person's like really hyper. They're very like smart and fast thinking. They look at the world like it's either this or it's either that. I'm like, I kind of learn every reading. I learn like maybe I could try to do that sometimes, because they're like walking through life like this and this. So it's absolutely not my opinion.
I think I figured out why I can never be intuitive.
Yeah.
But where do I fit into this? And then what's the difference? So then what's a medium?
So a medium is talking to the dead.
Okay.
That
cool.
is it. That is pretty much the difference. The medium side of me is able to speak to people who have died, and the way I do it, is a little different than most people. But a medium is someone who communicates. A lot of people throw around psychic medium as the same thing, which is confusing people to believe psychic is the same as medium.
I'm sure that
It's
I've combined
mediating.
that phrases on this show, probably
Yeah.
describing you as
Yeah.
well. So I'm sure I'm guilty of that.
That's okay. I mean, I'm not like, I just clarify it only because, again, it's all about honoring the spirit world and being a mediator. So they can hear and see you guys fine, and you don't need a medium for them to see and know what's going on with you. A medium's job is just to amplify that frequency to the person.
Right.
Exactly the way
You're
they
the
want.
4G or 5G network, I guess,
Yeah.
for us while trying
Right.
to speak to the dead.
Yes.
You're going to boost that signal.
Boost the signal and hone it and sharpen it and hone it and sharpen it. And again, you have to remove yourself completely out of the picture.
Right.
I like your analogies today, Michael.
I'm mixing my metaphors,
Good.
but
Good.
I've been thinking very visually lately because my new job requires me to just sit and picture things all day long. So maybe I'm just thinking in weird images.
No,
but,
it's perfect.
I like it.
Yeah.
Great. So let me ask you, before we get into your history, is there... this is kind of a big question, so feel free to answer this at your own pace. But obviously, but is there, when I listen to you talk about being an intuitive and being able to see multiple futures, and where if you make this choice, this will happen. If you don't, this will happen.
Right.
When you are in that zone, I'm not sure what to call it. Is there a place you go? Is there a network you're on? Sort of like the way we describe the internet, or a cell network. Have you personalized, like, for lack of a better term, like, and now I'm going to the upside down. You know what I mean? Like, is there a place you go, or is there a system or network that you're using to connect with people and see from their point of view and see where they're going?
Yeah, so actually your analogy is absolutely how I always tell people. It is like the internet, and it is like logging on, and it is the internet in the sense that it's a collective conscious in that realm that works in unison. In unison just means they're beyond empathic. Everyone talks telepathic and has a knowing, and that knowing comes, like the internet, a bunch of information, and helps you connect into. So I have to raise my frequency. I have to raise my Wi-Fi to connect to that realm.
And what do you have a name for that network?
I call it the collective consciousness.
Okay.
Or the collective whole, the collective. There's probably what's popular, but I just call them that collective group.
Right.
And I just don't pay attention anymore. It's not necessary. There's no separation. We live separate. That realm does not.
Right. What do you mean by that?
We're individually who you are in that realm. Like the core of who you are is the core of who you are. But we look at life like, hi, nice to meet you. Good luck in life. Right? Whatever you're doing isn't affecting me. In that realm, it's like we all feel whatever is happening. You don't need to explain it. We get it. It just downloads, shoots into us, kind of like
At
the
hyper
Matrix.
speed.
Yeah. You know how he shoots information through, and it just come, and they just know. So there is the idea isn't like, well, good luck to you, and I hope you succeed in that. It has nothing to do with me.
Let me ask you: Is it like? I'm sure you're familiar with the term Akashic record. Is it really like access?
Oh, you got an eye roll.
Rolled her eyes
you
there.
got an eye roll.
But is it? Why? What is
I
your
know, that
feelings
was
about
bad. I
that?
got
No,
called
we
on
love
that.
it.
Oh yeah,
No,
keep it
that's
coming.
yeah. So what's
Bryce is getting used
But I
to it.
think he likes it, so I don't
No,
want
I
to offend you.
Not at all. I'm just for those who don't know,
I know
the,
people aren't going to like this,
the
but
the Akashic record is supposedly like what you were describing, like the source of a place to get that type of information, because everything that's ever happened or everything that's ever going to happen is up in the ether in some sort of type of space.
Before you answer that question, I just want to make sure that we're talking about the information network that you're on when you're doing intuitive readings, which is different from quote unquote the spirit realm, or is it all one and the same?
no, it is different.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So just for our
Gotcha.
listeners,
Yeah.
we're not talking about speaking to the dead right now. We're
Right.
talking about when you were having an intuitive reading and seeing the future and seeing the past. That's the
Right.
network we're talking about.
Right.
Okay, cool.
So, for all the Akashic Records people, don't hate me, but because I've gotten shit for this.
Hey, we'll take all
Okay.
the shit. We'll take the shit for you.
But I'm
Don't worry
okay
about
with it because I'm here to kind of break down a lot of kind of misinformation
Sure.
to me that makes things more complicated. So when I'm talking about the collective whole, I'm not getting information from some records. I'm talking about I'm tapping into an energy, like a vibration of like, we're going to help you understand this person where they're at this time, but there's no preset of this is
Got
where,
it.
yeah. Cause that's kind of, I picture that as a
not set in
filing cabinet.
stone.
No, there
Yeah.
is no, to me, there's no preordained destiny.
Got it.
Yeah. And there is no preset, like, here's a file, let me open it, and this is who you are, because you're shifting and growing on a constant basis. So no one could really, the only person who really knows you is you, and those answers are born with you, and all spiritual teachers are supposed to do is hand you the key and help you unlock it.
Got it. I would agree with that.
So are you saying like that multiple futures coexist simultaneously, and then
Yes.
you may experience either one of them based on what you're choosing, but these different futures exist in
Right.
some sort of outside of whatever it is that we're experiencing?
That's kind of how
Yes.
I've always imagined
Yes.
it too, as if we're looking at a map, let's say of, if you look at like if you look at the map of your life, like we all live in Los Angeles. And if you look at, every day I wake up with a map of Los Angeles, basically, it goes larger than that, obviously. And typically I can go, well, we all have our routines and we can look on the map of where we go. But then there's all these other points on the map that we may go last minute. We may choose not to go, but they're always available.
Right.
And so that's how I kind of feel when we talk about multiple alternate realities and all that stuff. It's like, okay, yes, in our day-to-day life, we sort of have an open world experience that we can choose. And all of those choices are sort of being made simultaneously, and we're living on the one strand of ourselves that are choosing to just follow this route on the map today. And over time, collectively, that's your timeline, right? I lost everybody.
I kind of follow what you're saying, but I think you're making it more complicated for yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's really like, okay, so let's say you go, I can see, like, listen, if you take this job, I can see the conversation they're going to have with you, and this is what they're going to offer you, but this is what you want to ask for to get what you want, and then they're going to come back with this. And you may say, okay, I see that possible scenario that you're pointing out, but I kind of don't care, and I'm just going to take. So you just shifted. So it's like a domino effect. Like, it's constant influx,
Right.
constant. There's certain things I can't help stop for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Because
If they're on a trajectory, they're on a
it's
trajectory.
already happening. Yeah, if it's already happening, it's like, now it's already happening. All I can do is see, like, turn right. It's very much like the Matrix when
Yeah.
you're like looking at that screen and telling them what turn left, turn right. That's how I see things.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was using
Yeah,
the
you're
map
right.
as
Yeah, the map
as a
was right.
physical allegory for what the multiverse or what multiple timelines
Right.
are.
Yeah, that does make sense.
I don't
yeah.
know.
I visualize the whole thing as a tree-like fractal, you
Yeah.
know, and your life is one line of the fractal
Right,
based
right.
on the decisions that you've made, but the whole fractal, exists.
Right. And
Yes.
to me, the fractal is that map.
Yeah. Fractal
Cool.
map.
And
Cool.
hence,
Our
this
new
is why
band.
you guys see the worlds differently.
Totally.
That's
Right.
the point. Yeah.
Okay, so then what is the network that you're getting on when you want to speak to the dead, or when the dead want to speak to you?
So the dead always wants to speak to everybody, by the way. Contrary to what you might have heard, they all want to talk all the time, and to anybody who will listen to them.
We'd love to get some on the show if they're listening.
Boy, careful what you ask for. Now, when you say that, Adela, it makes me feel as if the dead are desperate.
No, they are. Imagine if you suddenly had, a dark blindfold on your eyes and you get it uncovered and you go, wow, this was really simple, and everyone's running around looking for the door, and I just found the door and it's not as complicated, but no one can see me, and I can't tell them, like, I can't let them know. They're not seeing or hearing me. So they're not desperate at all. They're just more hearing the pleas of everyone looking kind of lost and confused. And they want to kind of reveal.
They want to be like, hey, don't freak out about this stuff.
Yeah, they're kind of more like, I hear all the time, it's way simple. And I've had experiences, so I've seen that, how simple it really is. It's just like walking and just standing up from this couch and you're still in this room. So it's a realm within a realm. So to answer your question, though, when I keep that door closed when I'm going through life, except for at night, which is very hard for me because I don't sleep very well, to block it out. But when I'm doing a medium reading, I kind of look at it like logging on, and then I ask, the person can say who they want to talk to specifically, by relationship of who. I don't need a name. They can say my brother, my good friend, or whatever. And I say, okay, I'm going to log on and only talk to that person, which took me a lot of years because the spirit realm is not reverent. They all will just...
It's a cacophony.
Yeah, they'll just all start talking. So I've had to teach them, I will not do this for you if you don't follow my rules. So I've had to learn, and we've had to learn each other. It's like a language.
Again, that makes it sound like people on the other side are really pushy.
Well, just like people here.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, is that discouraging to hear?
No, because
I mean,
you're
because you picture like once you cross over on the other side, you're like, oh, I get it now. Like you said, it's so much more simple. But if I'm still like, hey, let me get in there first.
If your mother's crying about you every night,
right?
Wouldn't you want to let her know you don't have to cry about me every night because I just found out I just walked through a door and you think I've just vanished?
Right.
Yeah, that's why.
So the people who are all trying to file in and get through the door, you're the door. You're in it, right? I mean, in a way.
Gatekeeper.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Not the gatekeeper to respect that realm, but...
Right.
Gatekeeper.
Right.
One of many.
So, I mean,
messenger.
In other words, what you're saying, though, too, is that like we maintain or we keep our personalities or our experiences after life.
Yes. Yes. People think that when you die, that suddenly you become this all-knowing, all-understanding.
You get reamalgamated back into the source of one and sort of lose your ego or your identity, as it were.
Yes, but you don't. You stay exactly who you are, but you grow. So it's kind of the idea of when people talk about, you've heard people talk about levels, or what's the term? Guys, I don't even use it. Planes. It's not literal. Like we picture everything like here. We bring it all down to this place. It's a consciousness. It's an understanding. You wouldn't look at a kindergartner and think you're above a kindergartner.
What about
I would, because kindergartners are dumb.
What about
that explains a lot of what's going to happen to you on the other side.
How does it work with for instance, past lives and reincarnation? I mean, how do you vibe on that?
Yeah, so I'm another medium who I do not believe in past lives because that's a whole nother explanation. I don't believe it in the traditional sense.
We talked about this in Pete's backyard, Bryce.
Oh.
We could go back over the territory a little. I'd say the conversation warrants a second lap.
Surprises a lot of people. If you can imagine being in the work I do, people get a little like, oh, well, here's the thing. Because the reason why I don't is because so let's say you're a new soul and you're going to be born and I've passed. I can come to you and say, would you like to see my life and everything about it? And since it's nothing like we can imagine here, it's like being in VR times a million, and you can feel everything of what it was like to live my life. Then you're born, and then you meet my son, and you go to the place I live, and you swear you've been there before. Because that realm is so much connected to this realm than people realize, and sometimes there's other cases where someone could be even being hearing from someone who's passed and not realize they're giving him all this information. There's no shortage of spirits.
Sure.
Yeah. So I just don't, it never resonated with me. I've looked, you have to realize there's years of me going, or people going, you must read this book or you have to, I go, okay, listen, I'll look into it. If it doesn't sit with me from what I'm seeing and hearing and learning from that realm, it just doesn't. And so it feels very limited, because there is multi-dimensions and there is multi-timelines, and there's no reason, this isn't the only one people want to come be born to. This isn't the only place to learn. And because when you pass, you do learn. You continue to learn and grow. So you are your personality, but when people come when they come talk to me, spirits who talk to me, they'll show me how you knew them when they were alive on purpose, because they'll say someone was grouchy and they're all flowery. You're like, that's not my grandfather. I don't know who that person is. So they'll show me how you knew them. And then they'll talk about, but I've kind of changed and I've kind of grown. But it's a process of growth.
So what you're saying is, in other words, like before we're born, our soul already exists.
Yes.
And then what we might experience, or some people might experience as a past life regression or a memory of a former life, is actually just information that we have received prior to arriving here,
The collective.
in this realm. Either we got it before we shot down in the flesh suit, or we're getting it beamed into us or sent to us from the other side without us really knowing about it.
Well, the thing is, because if you look at it like the internet, that there's information constantly existing, and as you're raising your frequency and you're opening and you're becoming awake, you're tuning more and more into that.
So the spirit realm is really the internet that we don't know that we're logged on to.
That's right.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the conception of new soul versus old soul? If reincarnation is not a factor, I'm wondering what you think about that.
There are more
I
conscious.
also love that we're talking about this as if reincarnation is a proven fact.
No, I mean,
Well, there's,
none of this is a proven anything.
No,
It's
I
just
know, I
what
know.
makes
That's
the
right.
conversation
But
fun.
no, it's just funny to be like, but what about reincarnation? As if we're like, but what about gravity?
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say, all of this I'm saying is my form of belief, and what I've been shown, I'm only seeing a very corner of the big puzzle.
Sure.
Right. So I'm claiming everything I've learned has changed and grown and opened and shifted over the years. But the new soul versus old soul is kind of the idea of someone being highly conscious in that realm and chooses to come and help out here. Might
okay.
be what you're considering an old soul. It's like, listen, I don't have to go there, but
So they will literally be born again?
No, there's other dimensions that exist in and live and grow
Okay.
and understand and have evolvement. And then you're like, I'll go to that. This is the harshest, most barbaric,
density.
The one we're
the most
living
density
in. Okay.
dimension. And it's kind of like everybody has to have a turn of boot camp. And you can't just only live here and use your wisdom. And some aren't coming in that way.
Is that how you feel that Earth is sort of like the boot camp of souls?
I absolutely do.
Yeah.
Well,
At least for me.
I mean, I think a lot of people would relate to that. So wait, before we move on, I want to. Are you saying then that a soul might, even though there's no such thing as reincarnation, I mean, let's just go with that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That a soul might live a life here in the third dimension on planet Earth in this reality, go back to the spirit realm or whatever the collective
Right.
conscious, and then go, now I'm going to go do the same thing I did in the third dimension on Earth, but I'm going to go to a different reality in a different dimension and go live a life there.
Well, this is the one that
Does that make sense? So it's almost like cross-dimensional reincarnation?
Or another universe or another
Yeah,
dimension.
that's what I'm saying. Another reality completely.
Come back and play a song again. Sure.
Just get
In a different-
one shot at each reality.
Yeah, is it that kind of a thing?
this is the most asleep. So this is the most like limited to me physically because we're in the very physical, like in the body, the
Right.
avatar thing. The other realms, they kind of are aware of, they can transform into they're not caught up in the physical material block that we have here.
Got it.
That's why this is a challenge.
Right. 'cause
It's
we
like you're coming
forget-
here for the challenge.
Yeah, and we forget
Right.
what the whole deal is.
Right. You're coming here to go, what would happen if I was limited? It's like when you're little and you believe you could fly and you believe that you can read minds because you did at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And your parents tell you, what do they tell you? We don't do that. That doesn't exist here. It doesn't exist here. It doesn't exist. It's not what we do. You have to pick up a pen and write it. You have to talk with your mouth. And so we're acclimated to this way of living.
It's kind of like if time travel existed and we chose to go back and live in like prehistoric times.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It'd be like, wow, now I wish or even 200 years ago, honestly.
Yeah.
Be like, you mean I have to build my own house? This sucks. Right?
That's exactly.
But I'm up for a challenge.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly how they perceive
Because
it.
who wouldn't want to?
Yeah.
And then it's like, you might catch like the worst fever of all time and die. And it's like, yeah, but I could live in the Old West.
Well, it's like the Buddhist belief: life is suffering. You know what I mean? And if you're spending, an existence in other realities, or beyond the grave, where there really is no suffering, I'm assuming that once we pass, there's not as much, or there isn't any suffering to be held. Would you say that that's right? Or
Yeah, there isn't suffering. There is people working through pain of wanting to connect to the people that are missing them and trying to figure out how to communicate. But there's the ultimate, I always hear and always get shown, compassion and empathy, and in a way that we can't feel here. So no, there's not a loneliness. There's not I'm on my ownness, and there's not the challenge. So we come here to be limited, to rise above anyhow, to grow, to choose to grow or not. It's the choice.
yeah.
You said before, you've said it a couple times tonight, I think, it's so much more simple.
Yes.
What is that? What's the simplicity? What's when we cross over and look back, what's that thing that we go,
We're really afraid of death, and we're really afraid that it's going to be a whole process. We're told the pearly gates and heaven and hell and all this kind of stuff, and you really just kind of step out and step over to this, and you just step out of this body, and you're in it.
Death has no sting.
Right, it doesn't. And the only way I've come close to experiencing a certain experiences I've had where I've been like, this was way easier. I knew it was going to be this easy. And then, I should get shot back into the body.
Whoa. Really? So you've had near-death or out-of-body experiences in that sense?
I don't know if it's a near-death, because you have to realize I've been so close to that realm that it doesn't take much for me. So one time, I don't know if you want me to get into it.
Please.
The first time I had that experience was when I was, opening this stuff up, and I was hearing what people call, I see them as higher beings, talking to me. And I said, well, I want to see for myself. I don't want to just always be feeling like I'm crazy, talking to invisible people. And they're like, oh, I don't think you're ready. And I said, yeah. And they said, okay. And all of a sudden I was on the couch and I thought I was having a stroke because I felt my body freeze.
How old were you?
I was older. I was probably maybe 30 or something.
Okay.
Yeah. And because this is when I was deciding to accept things. You have to realize I ran from this. I have millions of experience as a kid and stuff, but this was me kind of consciously understanding what's going on.
Had you called yourself an intuitive or medium by this point in your life?
This was the beginning part of that.
Okay.
Yeah, this was the beginning years of me finally going, all right, so I've been running and life hasn't quite worked out. And I've ran all over the country and the world, and I'm not escaping me. So,
So you were really trying to run from these gifts, or suppose that you would call them. Yeah.
Yeah. Most people who have this aren't running towards it.
Totally.
And, so then all of a sudden I felt my body. I seriously thought I was having a stroke. So I was in my mind going, I'm having a stroke. So I remember crawling. I crawled on the floor, but my body was on the couch, and I saw these beings standing there, just kind of like when you would feel like parents looking at you amused. And I was banging on the TV and wondering why I couldn't get it to turn on, and screaming, but that thing where nothing's coming out. And I just kept hearing you have to learn, just let go. And I just crawled to my ex-boyfriend, an old boyfriend at the time's room. And I saw him on his bed and roll over. And I was like, what's wrong with him? Why won't he help me? And as soon as that happened, I zipped back and sat straight up.
Whoa.
It sounds very familiar to the dream world in a sense.
It is very familiar to dream world, but it's absolutely was as if at the time, I didn't realize it was as easy. If I had just let go, I would have been walking around the place. Now, the other time, I'm way down the years of honing this ability. We're shooting down the timeline. and I'm older, and I've been doing this for a long time. And I had a cast on that was pushing. No one believed me, but something was wrong. Later found out it was pushing on an artery.
Mm-hmm.
And I passed out, and I this time jumped off the couch and saw these two men again.
So you're jumping out of your body when you say that.
Yeah, this was easy. Just like
Wow.
it was super easy. And I was in the room, and I was it was before I had a kid. So I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's go. I said, I knew it was going to be this easy. We can just go now. And they said, no, not today. And I went, damn it. And then I felt like a hand grabbed my foot, and I came back into my body, and I heard something tell me, call someone to take you to the doctor now.
Whoa.
And they cut it open, and they're like, yeah, it was pushing on an artery. So.
Wow.
What do the entities look like in that example, and then maybe in the previous story?
Every time I see them, they're these tall, and they're in different colors. This time they were in all black. Two men in all black.
Do they look human?
I can't really see them. I just didn't care. I was like, yeah, okay, and they just kind of reminded me of these kind of almost like magicians or something. I don't know. They just were tall, hovering over you, and just kind of like a catcher, ready to go. Okay, we're going to stop you.
And who do you think they are?
Well, when I've seen them before, I know that they're the guardians. That they're the true gatekeepers.
Okay.
Yeah, because they've stopped me before. Not because I don't even get anything wrong. It's through dreams and stuff. I've been flying in dreams for years since I was little, and I would try to fly over the ocean, and symbolically the water is between the worlds, and I would always hear a voice too far, and I would fall into the ocean. And it took me years to figure out, oh yeah, there's you can't go so far because you don't come back.
Right.
And I didn't think of it as a big deal.
Right. Sure.
Now, you said earlier you were when you started honing your skills. How does one go about doing that when they discover that they have sort of these gifts? I mean, do you seek out material in books, or do you seek mentors, or do you garner advice from the spirit world?
For me, it was completely from that realm because I did want to find people, but I kept hearing the first spirit I ever heard told me, you need to listen to us. And then I got what I called teachers, and from raising my frequency and connecting. And they were like, if you go find a human person, you'll follow them because you're way too open. You're way too, I was too bright-eyed, bushy-tail.
Yeah.
And you'll do the guru, follow some guru. And they're like, humans have ego. They can't help themselves. And with us, you won't have that problem. And they said, by the way, it will help you to hone it sharper, and people will tend to accept it a little more if you're not reading from books or following some person, and you'll accept it more.
Well, that's why I asked the question. I mean, there's so much of a mass of information out there,
Right.
or I mean, one could go crazy,
Right.
Trying to decipher what is real, what is not, and who to listen to, who not to listen to, and
Right. And I've always been told over and over to tell people, listen to yourself. That everything that even I'm saying or anyone's saying, take whatever resonates, put it in your pot of potion, and a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and because you're all built so different, what resonates and what unlocks you will be different for each person.
What do you say, following that line of logic, what do you say to the skeptics out there? I mean, there's certainly plenty, and I think we have plenty that listen to this show.
Yeah.
Those who will hear this and go, no, it's not provable, therefore, no. And they're listening to themselves as well, you know what I mean?
Right.
Are they, assuming that the spirit realm does exist, and are they cutting themselves off from that when being skeptical, or are they just listening to a different form of intuition? I mean, what would your advice, or what would you say about the skeptical mind when it comes to this stuff?
Should absolutely be skeptical. And being skeptical is healthy and wonderful. And I always make a joke, I don't believe in skeptics because skeptics don't come to me. True skeptics.
Yeah, totally.
True skeptics are like, I'm out, I won't come to you. You're not skeptical probably of maybe that there's something out there, but you are skeptical of the person, and that's okay.
That brings me to my father was in town over this last weekend, and I mean, usually we have great debates and wonderful conversations that don't sort of get heated because we're usually on the same page. But this time we were talking about the existence of God, or whatever word or term that you would like to use, consciousness, universal, God, or whatever floats your boat. My father is a very, atheistic man and stout in his kind of reductionist scientific views. And so we kind of got into it a little bit. And I wonder, for him, when when his time comes, is somebody like that going to get that, oh shit moment where like, oh, I guess they were right. There is something here. There is something to this.
Oh yeah, over and over and over. I hear that because it is scientific more than they think. I think what people are skeptical of is woo-woo stuff that sounds like coming from ego and not something tangible that they feel like, like maybe it's an energy, and energy doesn't die. And, if you can kind of talk their language, they kind of are a little more open. But most importantly, people are really afraid because they don't want to be disappointed. Mm-hmm. So if they lost somebody, they don't want to be disappointed that maybe they're just wishing their person's there. If they're afraid of death, they don't want to be. They feel like it's better to just face it with a nothingness. So, but people who pass, even my own father I told him if he died before me, tell me, which he did, that I was right.
Yeah.
They all the time will be like, yeah, so
you were right.
And it was our joke.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, it was our joke, but it's also like the idea that they go, it's not what I thought it was going to be. They're always saying it's way easier than I thought, and I wish people told me that because I might have been more open to it. They're very like, I didn't believe it because it was all these weird things and all these weird rules, and it just didn't make sense to me.
Right.
So
so they get it either way. It's not a matter of like
you're walking through that door either way,
or just taking like, for one example, like in the dogma of Christianity, you're going to get there either way, even if you don't accept Jesus Christ as your personal savior. You know what I mean? Once you cross over, you experience that no matter what. Right.
Most people, what I hear is that they're so happy because it's more about the love they didn't expect to feel.
So how do we live our lives now? Knowing that, you know what I mean? Like, how do we, I don't know, you know what I mean? Because like part of me is like, oh, okay, well then obviously, we can't live our lives in a destructive sense just because that's just a shitty time for everybody. So knowing this, is there, what I take away from is hearing like, okay, maybe we just need to all just decompress a little bit, relax a little bit, and try to enjoy our life as much as possible.
Sounds like good advice.
Like what? Yeah, I mean, what's your take on that? If
if
death is easier than we think, okay, cool. How do we put that into action in our daily life?
Well, the thing is, it's not a reward. So I think if you take out the idea that, okay, well, it's easy and I got my reward. If you live your life in the moment, which is important, which is pretty much, I hear the message all the time about pay attention to the moments in between things. But it is to rise and be more consciousness, because the more conscious as you are, the more aware you are, you're going to have a much higher awareness there. So in other words, like I said, somebody who's like, I never even thought about this. I'm just still trying to figure out that I'm an energy. And it's not like all the information comes to them and they know everything. So the more aware you are, the more conscious you're trying to be here, the much more you're going to experience and understand there. But more importantly, the idea is for us to raise into an awakening of stop fighting against each other.
Right.
Well, and to extract meaning from our lives too, because it seems like, on this life, you can live in one of two camps. You can be nihilistic and be like, nothing means nothing. Who cares? Or you can be on the other side of the fence and, everything means something. You know what I mean? I mean, we're here for a reason, and we're here to, gain experience and gain, learn things and experience things, and and find meaning and make meaning out of everything.
Right.
I think that's where that's the side of the fence that I'm on anyway, is that everything means something,
Yeah, and to all people want is to be seen and understood and to love and to be connected. That's all at the end of the day.
Sounds like the dead want to do the same thing.
Well, the dead wants to help take away the fear and also to help the pain people have.
But what about the scary ghosts? Because they're adding to the fear.
Well, the scary ghosts are like little bad boys and girls who think it's fun.
Oh.
They're not trying to evolve. Mm-hmm. They don't care. I'm not saying that everybody goes, I choose to evolve. And they're the ones that think it's fun to mess with people, just like people mess with children and think it's funny to like scare them and blow their mind with things. And if they move a door, if they move something, I've had to clean houses, and I'll say, you're not being right. And they're like, but it's not a big deal. Whatever.
I'm just picturing like a sassy teenage
Right.
ghost.
Like, whatever.
God, Adela, you're so lame.
It's my spirit body. I'll do what I want.
Oh my God, it's amazing. Adela, I feel like, we're going to have an ongoing conversation as this show continues. We have to move on. But
Okay.
before we do,
Yes.
we have a game we like to play on the show called Bullshit or Believe It.
Oh.
All right?
Okay.
We ask all
That's
our
fun.
guests. It's a rapid fire. You have a choice between two answers, bullshit or believe it.
Okay.
If there's anything in particular, we can circle back around after we go through the list. If you want to be like, okay, I said this, but I want to make sure I communicate this. Because,
Okay.
it's not always either or.
Okay.
So you ready?
Sure.
On your mark,
Yes.
get set,
Okay.
ghosts,
Believe it.
UFOs,
Think about it. Believe it.
Bigfoot,
I believe it.
angels,
Believe it.
gnomes.
Not sure. Bullshit.
There you
Maybe.
go. Bullshit.
Not sure.
Fairies,
Believe it.
unicorns,
Bullshit.
Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah, I kind of think that's bullshit.
Traditional gray aliens,
Believe it.
parallel universes,
Believe it.
reptilians disguising themselves as humans,
Bullshit.
mermaids.
I think
Bryce
Waits
is
in hushed
smiling.
anticipation.
Bryce is like, say it.
I kind of think I believe it, but I'd have to explain why.
We'll circle back.
Okay.
Heaven,
Bullshit.
hell,
Bullshit.
dragons,
I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna go with believe it.
Yeti.
What's a Yeti again?
It's like the abominable snowman.
oh,
He's
yeah,
the
that's
Himalayan
right. Bullshit.
Bigfoot.
I
Snowy
think that's
Bigfoot.
bullshit.
Okay, elves,
Elves. I think I believe it.
ESP,
Believe it.
chupacabra.
What is that?
Devil
It's the
dog.
Mexican. Well, it's actually not. I should take that back. It's a Peruvian.
Puerto Rican.
Oh yeah, you're
I think
right.
You're right.
Oh,
It's
boy.
Puerto Rican.
It's a Puerto Rican, like bloodsucker entity, the goat sucker.
No. Bullshit.
Demons,
Believe it.
Atlantis,
Believe it.
life on other planets,
Believe it.
world peace,
I hope to believe it. I
Peace.
mean, hope for that.
peace in the multiverse.
Believe it.
Cool. All right,
Nice.
mermaids, go.
Well, the mermaids.
You got 30 seconds.
Mermaids and the Yeti.
To make
I
a
just
case.
kind of believe that things might be existing that we're getting at a little crisscrossed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I kind of feel like there's dimensional things that are happening at some
Whoa,
times.
we're
We're a fan of that.
We're big
Around
fans
here.
of that around here for sure.
Yeah.
I
So
like
I just
that.
think we've.
I know what I saw. I was on the bow. and
a swimming yeti.
she was looking at me straight in the eye.
with them lusty silver orbs.
Whatever gets them through the night.
Yeah, we're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, it's time for High Strangeness, and trust us, we're not gonna go too far from this realm.
Sweet.
Okay.
Oh, so I thought I did
You
silent
jumped
one.
the gun, dude.
Oh man.
Bryce is coming in
I thought I
hot
heard
with
a silent
tonight's High
well,
Strangeness.
I think I was
with our-
late on the button.
Oh, okay. All good.
It wasn't your fault.
Well, someone was pretty hot to trot tonight, and it wasn't me, and it wasn't Adela. So you boys need to work it out. We're with Adela Lavine, and it's time for High Strangeness. Bryce,
It sure is.
what did you bring in for us
Well-
on this Halloween night?
On this Halloween night, I knew that you were coming in, and I knew we would be talking about spirits and things of this sort. So I wanted to discuss a story of High Strangeness that is one of my kind of passions and one of my most favorite topics, and that is what is known as the spirit molecule, otherwise known as N,N-dimethyltryptamine, or more commonly referred to as DMT.
Oh, yeah.
Now, DMT is often referred to as the spirit molecule and is one of the most intriguing psychedelic substances on Earth, not just because of the wild and strangely unimaginable experiences reported by DMT users, including but not limited to being transported to different dimensions or parallel universes, convincing encounters with intelligent non-human presences like cacti, giant insects, and especially aliens. But because there has been research that suggests it is produced in our own bodies, including our liver, lungs, as well as an intriguing and mysterious gland in our brains known as the pineal gland.
My liver's full of mezcal.
Different thing. While the physiological function of the pineal gland has been unknown until
Is it
recent
pineal or
times-
is it pineal?
Both is correct.
Okay, I'm not correcting you.
No,
I
not at
actually
all.
don't know.
They're
Then
both
it
correct.
is named
Okay.
after that because it's a small gland in the middle of the brain that sort of looks like a pine cone, and that's why you'll see so many references to, like the Pope has a scepter, and on the end is a pine cone. In those old Sumerian hieroglyphics, the Sumerian gods are also holding a pine cone.
And isn't the pineal gland or pineal gland located where we traditionally depict the third eye?
Yes, well, I'm going to get there. Mystical traditions and esoteric schools have long believed this area in the middle of the brain to be the connecting link between the physical and spiritual worlds, considered by Hindus to be the site of the seventh or crown chakra, and by René Descartes, father of modern-day philosophy, to be the seat of the soul. It is purported to be the most powerful and highest source of ethereal energy available to humans, and has been the key component in initiating supernatural powers, as well as the development of psychic abilities. Also of interesting note is the fact that the pineal gland becomes visible in the developing fetus at 49 days. The Tibetan Book of the Dead teaches that it takes 49 days for the soul of the recently dead to reincarnate, and 49 days is nearly exactly the moment in which one can clearly see the first indication of male or female gender.
Whoa.
Terence McKenna, an ethnobotanist and psychonaut who experimented with the drug 30 to 40 times throughout his career, said in his book, The Archaic Revival, "It was really the DMT that empowered my commitment to the psychedelic experience. DMT was so much more powerful, so much more alien, raising all kinds of issues about what is reality, what is language, what is the self, what is three-dimensional space and time, all the questions he became involved with over the next 20 years or so." McKenna, along with many others who have tried the drug, insist that the experience is so surreal that it cannot be accurately translated into words. In other words, what DMT does can't be downloaded into as low-dimensional a language as English, describes McKenna. The experience of DMT was, to McKenna, of a fundamentally different order than any other experience this side of the yawning grave. He said it was not a drug, but something masquerading as a drug. McKenna expressed how he believed DMT could play a role in dreaming, partially because the way a dream melts away is the same way a DMT trip melts away. However, McKenna is not alone in speculating that DMT has something to do with our dreams. Even further, there are speculations that DMT is released in our bodies when we're born and when we die. Dr. Rick Strassman, a Stanford University graduate with a specialization in psychiatry and psychopharmacology, is the torchbearer behind the idea that DMT is released when we are born and when we die. He took on a 5-year DEA-approved clinical research project to investigate the effects of DMT and administered about 400 doses of the drug intravenously to nearly 6 heavily pre-screened volunteers. Dr. Strassman hypothesizes that when a person is approaching death, or possibly even just in a dream state, the body releases relatively large amounts of DMT. The majority of his volunteers reported profound encounters with non-humans and deep spiritual experiences. And Dr. Strassman believes that DMT could explain some of the wild imagery described by survivors of near-death experiences, as well as those recounting their dreams. In his book, DMT, the Spirit Molecule, he writes that DMT is the most naturally occurring hallucinogen in the world and exists in all of our bodies, as well as throughout the plant and animal kingdoms. It's a part of the normal makeup of humans and other mammals, marine animals, grasses, peas, toads, frogs, mushrooms and molds, and barks, flowers, and roots. So, why is it called the spirit molecule? What gives it that name? According to his book, a spirit molecule needs to elect, with reasonable reliability, certain psychological states we consider spiritual. These are feelings of extraordinary joy, timelessness, and a certainty that what we are experiencing is more real than real. Such substance may lead us to an acceptance of the coexistence of opposites, such as life and death, good and evil, a knowledge that consciousness continues after death, a deep understanding of the basic unity of all phenomena, and a real sense of wisdom or love pervading all existence. A spirit molecule also leads to spiritual realms. These worlds are usually invisible to us and are instruments and are not accessible using our normal state of consciousness. However, just as likely as the theory that these worlds exist only in our minds is that they are in reality outside of us and freestanding. If we simply change our brain's receiving abilities, we can apprehend them and interact with them, much like what you were saying, Adela. Once taken, volunteers of Dr. Strassman's work reported a tidal wave of effects that quickly led to one's losing awareness of the body, causing some to think they had died. The disassociation of the body and mind paralleled the development of peak visual effects. He typically heard phrases like, "I no longer had a body. My body dissolved. I was pure awareness," stating, "There seemed to be a clearly identifiable sense of movement, of consciousness, away from the body." Many use the term four-dimensional or beyond dimensionality to describe its effect. Specific visual images included a fantastic bird, a tree of life and knowledge, and a ballroom with crystal chandeliers. There were tunnels, stairways, ducks, and a spinning golden disc. Others saw the inner workings of machines or bodies inside a computer's boards, DNA double helixes. Even more impressive was the apprehension of human and alien figures that seemed to be aware of and interacting with the volunteers. Non-human entities might be recognizable as spiders, mantises, reptiles, and something like a saguaro cactus. One volunteer, Sarah, reported, "I always knew we weren't alone in the universe. I thought the only way to encounter them is with bright lights and flying saucers in outer space. It never occurred to me to actually encounter them in our own inner space. I thought the only things we could encounter were things in our personal sphere of archetypes and mythology. I expected spirit guides and angels, not alien life forms." Another volunteer, Dimitri, was well aware that his DMT experience resembled the publicly reported experiences of UFO abductees. The instant the injection took effect, wham! I felt like I was in an alien laboratory, a sort of landing bay or recovery area. There were beings. They had a space ready for me. They weren't as surprised as I was. There was one main creature, and he seemed to be behind it all, overseeing everything. The others were orderlies or disorderlies. They activated a sexual circuit, and I was flushed with an amazing orgasmic energy. When I was coming out, I couldn't help but think, aliens. A very similar story was told by Rex after a low dose of DMT, only 0.2 milligrams. The beings were there, and they were doing something to me, experimenting on me. There was a female. I felt like I was dying. Then she reappeared and reassured me. When I was with her, I had a deep feeling of relaxation and tranquility. She had an elongated head. Now, Michael, I think this is where you'll think it's interesting. These speculations regarding unseen worlds and their residents return us to alien abduction experiences. The striking similarity of the reports of DMT users and alien abductees influenced Dr. Strassman to hypothesize that the alien abduction experience is related to abnormally elevated levels of DMT. In his work with natural occurring alien encounters, famed Harvard psychiatrist Dr. John E. Mack refers to how often these experiences occur at personal times of crisis, trauma, and loss. Perhaps in these individuals, stress and pain overcome the pineal's ability to prevent excessive DMT release and trigger access to these unusual experiences. In addition, many abductees have a history of these encounters that date back to childhood. Such individuals may possess especially active DMT production capabilities due to a biological hardwiring predisposition. Mack also notes that many abductions from people's homes take place in the early morning hours. The pineal gland is most active at this time, right around 3 to 4 a.m. Might early morning DMT production open the portals to alien encounters in these predisposed individuals? Fascinating to note is that John Mack, before his death, suggested that reconnection to spirituality is at the heart of the abduction phenomena. Rick Strassman, for all his empirical caution, was ultimately obliged by his research to accept the possibility that DMT does provide our consciousness with access to real parallel dimensions. It may be, he writes, that DMT alters the characteristics of our brains so that we are able to perceive what the physicists call dark matter, the 95% of the universe that is known to exist, but that at present remains invisible to all our senses and instruments, and reminding us of the surprisingly common reports of his volunteers that they were expected by the beings they encountered on their trips, and even welcomed back when they returned again and again. But how could this be possible? How might these beings be even dimly aware of our presence if we normally don't have any inkling of theirs? Perhaps, Strassman suggests, we are not dark for the denizens of dark matter, or parallel to those intelligent beings who have mastered the alternate realities. And that is the story of DMT, the spirit molecule.
Damn, son.
Yeah.
That shit was cool.
Crazy, right?
All right. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to ask Adela Lavine,
What the hell was that?
That's awesome.
Great job, Bryce, with that High Strangeness, and Riley killing it with the live scoring.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks.
Every episode it gets better
Loved it.
and better.
Finally learning
I was
how
like-
to use these
I
things.
was like in Blade Runner 2049 on that
grounded and hold on.
one. So Adela, I saw you nodding a lot.
Yes.
Nodding your head yes a lot during that, especially when it got to the parts about expecting to see maybe spiritual teachers and instead got aliens.
Yes.
Let's talk about this. What's your reaction to all this, first of all?
Well, I mean, I know a lot of people. Obviously, I'm in a world that people use DMT a lot, which to me, what they're talking about is true. I mean, the third eye and all of that. But to me, just I guess to get to the point, what I have found, so we're going into this other area, is that a lot of things that people depict as angels and things are really ETs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very controversial and not controversial, meaning like I think people are starting to understand it. And raising your frequency is all that's doing. DMT and people who use certain things, it helps them open to pop these things open that we can all are capable of, but obviously it's a great assistance to see. And the beings have told me that they're not taking anyone anywhere, that they are making them believe they're in this place, in a ship or in a room, by just popping something in like
Open.
An adventure as to inner space as opposed to outer space.
Yeah,
perhaps.
so it's kind of a telepathic communication and also a way of opening up a dimension that they're like you said in what you were reading, that they're aware of and they've mastered that we haven't mastered. But it's easier for us to believe that we've went somewhere.
Yeah, but no more or no less real than
It's absolutely real.
Yeah.
I've seen it. I've been experienced those things.
Have you experienced what someone might call a traditional alien abduction?
No, it was very. I was aware of what was happening.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I had something
You can share whatever you want to share.
recently that happened.
Oh, great.
And I've had something I think I shared with you before.
A little bit about the wise blue teachers.
Yeah, and I think I shared with you like where I thought I was dreaming, but I was in this room, and then the being said, "I'm going to tell you things about how the universe."
Yes,
right.
yes.
And I was very much aware where I was, and later is when I was told, "We don't take anybody anywhere. We just." It's the best way they could describe it that time was like hypnotizing or putting you in a certain state that they can just kind of, snap you into.
Yeah.
So what was your recent experience? Do you mind
So yeah, my
sharing?
recent experience kind of, even for me, and I've seen a lot, had me tripped out for a few days. So I was sleeping. And I don't sleep between the hours of 3 and 5. That's absolutely true. That's when it's because your mind goes to sleep and your awareness of the dream state opens up better. So it's an easier way to slip into the consciousness.
Well, and according to what I've read, it's the peak production time.
Yes, it's the peak.
The DMT
yes.
levels in and throughout your
That's
body.
Well, maybe that you just gave me another understanding of why I never sleep between those hours. I get woken up between 3 and 5 since I was a baby.
I don't want to sound like I'm like hopping on the bandwagon here, but like I have to say lately in the past 2 months, I think I mentioned I've been having like super weird dreams and trouble sleeping in the past couple months. I wake up wide awake between 3 and 4 lately, almost every night.
That's because you're becoming more. The more you start waking up to things, the more you start becoming aware. The more that realm wants to be active, and you're
it's like
active
almost
to it.
nightly lately. It's crazy.
Yes, I've been doing this for. I've never known what it's like to not to sleep through the night. But one night I was sleeping, and you know how you have that dream wake thing? I know I was looking at my partner, my boyfriend sleeping next to me. I was looking at him, but next to him there was a being standing there. And you know, when it wasn't like a dream because I was looking around the room, but you know, you're kind of frozen. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't frozen in fear. I had no fear, no anything. And they were just swaying back and forth. Like the sway. I always see them swaying. And it's kind of hypnotizing, I guess. And I remember thinking, this isn't scary at all. I'm not scared at all. I always hear people talk about being scared and terrified. And I felt like I knew him, like he was a brother. Like,
what did the being look like?
He had, like, I'd never seen anything like this before. It was, not like what people talk about, like a gray or anything. It was actually kind of yellowish, more, I guess tan-ish.
Mm-hmm. Was it in the shape of a alien gray?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
With the black eyes, almond-shaped eyes?
No, he didn't have black eyes. His eyes were scrunched. So you have to realize I was kind of more mesmerized by the feeling of complete and utter I'm at peace with this. And his head was more long and bubbly. Mm-hmm. And his face just looked like it was hard to see. Like I couldn't really see his eyes weren't like those big almond at all. Mm-hmm. They were kind of more like when someone's kind of like can't see you very well and they're just kind of looking.
The pig-shaped eyes.
Almost like half closed or something. And all I felt, I don't think he had a smile, felt like a smile, and it was just swaying. And I was like, I'm not like scared at all. And I know you, and this is okay. But then it changed, and I flashed, and I was somewhere else. And it was a long table, and there was a woman sitting next to me. I couldn't see her face. It's like she was deliberately keeping her head down. I could only see her hair. But I depict her as human, discussing with everybody about how we have to start preparing people for things and how we have to expose people that there's, multiple types of races, and it was almost like I was watching like a VR, but it felt like real in the moment of like a presentation of like, this is how it's going to go. Right.
Wild.
So I'm sitting there and this being walks in, and it looked like the one I saw, and he put on sunglasses, and he's like, you see, we walk around all the time. It's very easy to hide. You guys don't pay attention to anything. We just walk by as long as we wear clothes, and, it's really not that big of a deal. And I was like, how many times does that happen? He goes, it happens all the time. You guys are very preoccupied.
Whoa.
And so I was like, wow, that's crazy. And then, and then I'm like, what is happening? But I'm going to tell you the weirdest part in a minute. Believe it or not, you would think this was all the weirdest part. But then this other being walked in that kind of looked, this is going to sound totally nuts, but it's like its ears were kind of not like anything I've ever seen traditional, like long, and the face kind of was smushed, and it was a female, and she was purposely wearing a dress, and they were like, see, she can just come in, and it's like a club, and it's going to be normal. It's going to be totally normal, like walking into a restaurant or walking down the street. Like, this is not going to be, it's really not a big deal. There's a lot of different, we can assimilate. It's not a big deal. Or we can all kind of get each other. And I was like, okay. And then they suddenly had guns. And I was like, well, what's happening with that? And then the guns, they shot them and they turned into toy guns. And they said, you see, we're not scared of you guys. You understand this, right? Like, all of the stuff you have, we can turn into, it's like child's play to us. Like, we can turn it into nothing. So there's nothing to be afraid of.
Wild.
And I went, well, how are we going to get people to understand this? And then in this place, I felt like I slipped. It's like someone cut open like a wall.
Like slice right through reality.
Right. And I was in this place, and it was amazingly peaceful. Like, all this place felt like no worries. Like, everything was just calm. Like, this was the safest I ever felt in my life. And that I realized where we are is just harsh, like super harsh. And they were kind of conveying that. Like, you live in a very harsh environment. Don't mistake it. It's very harsh. And then when I came back, I felt it. I felt like everything was sharper and harsher and rough and unconnected. And when I was in there, it just felt like we're one, connected with you. It's, us, you just aren't aware. Everybody knows. And that was the most recent experience.
Wow.
And I still kind of go, what the...
So do you attribute
that? It stayed with me for a lot of days, because that feeling, I wanted to get back to that feeling, because I was like, he's like my brother. I know him. Mm-hmm. And I was like, why? So...
Do you think that has been a force, that entity has maybe been a force that's been guiding or teaching you in the way that people would say an angel would play that role?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I absolutely know that many of them are just like what he read about, are much more it's just easier for us to interpret it as a bird, a being with bird wings.
Right.
Yeah.
It sounds to me, I mean, like what you described, that makes me think of like interdimensional, like the interdimensional, like machine elves or imps or these kind of things that have like a higher, like a fifth dimensional entity that has manipulation over time, space, and our reality.
I mean, all week I was listening to, old YouTube videos of Terrence McKenna, and I could listen to him for hours wax poetic about his DMT experiences and his descriptions of the worlds that he entered. And what he has to say is just absolutely fascinating, because, he, when I said that, he felt that they weren't a drug, but they were something else masquerading as a drug. His view was that, these worlds that you enter in through DMT, they are inhabited by intelligence beings who purposely put themselves in something as innocuous as a chemical, a small molecule, to hide their existence and to make contact with people. I mean, and animals and plants and stuff like that, because it like I said, it is the most common hallucinogen found in and throughout planet Earth.
Yeah, the
It's
thing
wild.
about with DMT, I would say if anyone's listening, you got to be really careful because I've seen people go off into a not good place.
Yeah.
And you got to know what you're doing. And the main thing I've gotten a message by those beings is we want you to learn how to raise your frequency. You know, to not lean on things like this because that's all they're
Right.
doing. They've taught this over and over, and it's the idea of a sphere around you
Yeah, they call it the dome.
going like this, and they've showed me like it's one crosses the other, and if you learn it, it pushes your frequency, and that's how you shoot up to them. It's a frequency. You're not going up. You're just raising your frequency and you can start to see things.
Yeah, it's funny is that it's considered, a class 1 scheduled drug. And, Graham Hancock is always one of my favorite authors. He's always talked about how, we should really be in charge of our own consciousness, and whatever that means to us and how, a substance like that can, activate one's spirituality shouldn't be controlled by the government and stuff like that. And you also get into these kind of conversations and arguments about the fluoridation of the pineal gland, which is there's fluoride in our drinking water. There's fluoride in our toothpaste, and what fluoride does is it naturally calcifies the tissues in and around the pineal gland, which limits its mystical abilities. So, it can get somewhat conspiratorial in the fact that, why do we have fluoride in our water? Why is it in our
teeth?
Yeah,
Right.
I'm 100% with you up until the fluoride conspiracy.
Up until the fluoride,
Yeah,
right?
because
Yeah, no,
your-
there's not
I
a
mean,
lot
your
of hard
pineal gland-
science to back it up.
It naturally calcifies as you age. That's just
Right.
part of life. But
Yeah.
one thing that I also wanted to bring up that I just thought is fascinating is it's just the one structure in the brain that's not symmetrical.
Yeah, that's right.
It's just the only thing that's just itself, and I think that's really interesting.
Well, that's right. That's kind of what led Rene Descartes to feel that, like, when he was first discovering his ideas, he's like, I think, but therefore I am. Well, where do my thoughts come from? They come from my brain, but all pieces of the brain have a, there's both hemispheres. So there's a, frontal and a left and right hemisphere, but it's that pineal gland that's only singular in itself, and it sits right in the middle, and which made him kind of think that,
Makes
well,
sense.
this must be the thing that connects both the spiritual world and the physical world, because it's sitting right there that doesn't have its equal.
yeah.
I think it's such a cool idea. I really do.
Well, and there's also these amazing illustrations of the, and I should have brought a picture of the pineal gland and located within the brain, and it's exactly like you'll see in Egyptian hieroglyphics, that Eye of Horus.
Sure, yeah, totally.
It is almost like
Yeah, that's why I wear
identical.
it.
Yeah. Oh, check it out.
That's why
Yeah.
it's the only one I wear.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so if you look at a picture of the brain, that looks almost exactly like where the pineal gland sits within
Right.
between the two hemispheres of the brain.
Which part of the symbol?
The eye,
itself?
the actual
Okay.
eye,
Yeah.
and they do call it a third eye. And in lower mammals, the actual pineal gland has a retina, it has a cortex, and it has a lens.
Yeah.
What?
So it's not
Yes.
just it's not,
Where and what?
in lower mammals like amphibians and reptiles.
Those aren't mammals.
In
Precursors,
precursors.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
evolutionarily speaking. But yeah.
Lower animals, reptiles,
Animals.
amphibians, and birds.
Okay.
The pineal gland has a cornea, a retina, and sense photoreceptors.
Whoa.
And it's moved
Because,
back
yeah,
into their brains.
It's also
So-
believed to help the animal understand the change between night and day. That's
That's
why it has a
right.
photoreceptor.
Cool.
So
Oh,
it
cool.
literally and really is
A third eye.
Third
Wow.
eye.
Yeah, it's related to the visual system.
And when you start to think about those Egyptians and what they knew about the pineal gland, you start to wonder, like, how on earth were they able to get this information, to get this knowledge, Well, and then, of course, you start reading about these Peruvian rainforest tribes who are able to put together two totally separate plants to make it orally active. Because if you just ingest, and DMT is the active ingredient in ayahuasca, which
Yeah, but you got to brew it in a tea because
Yeah.
our
you have to brew it in a tea. But not
stomachs-
only do you have to brew it in a tea, but you need a monoxamine base. So there's an enzyme in our stomach,
Yeah, that
inhibits,
counteracts it.
that counteracts DMT, and these shamans in these rainforests, they have found the inhibitor to actually inactivate that enzyme. And anthropologists and botanists are absolutely baffled and befuddled that they're like, how these tribes were able to find the one plant that turns off this enzyme is absolutely a fucking mystery, because
it's not when you think about what the ETs are telling them, bro.
But what the shamans say is, well, the plants told us how to do this.
Totally. Absolutely.
So great.
You spend enough time in the
Make
jungle,
sure
you're going
you
to meet
do
some
it with
plant
a real
gods.
shaman.
Yeah, we've said that before too. Yeah, like get a real shaman if you're going to go do that.
Because it's very popular, and I've seen it very much used the wrong way.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, there was a lot of there was a lot of good trips, and there were a lot of bad trips.
And listen, we're not just so everybody knows. We're not sitting here.
We're not advocating.
We're not advocating the use of it. We're learning from. We are not.
I might be.
No, we are not.
we are
not
follow up
legally.
On that. Legally, I'm
no,
not.
we are not. Actually,
no, we're not at
Definitely
all.
Not.
I am not.
But we've got to. Unfortunately, we have to call it a night. This has been such an awesome episode. Thank you so much, Bryce, for that High Strangeness.
Of course.
That was rad.
Yeah.
And Adela, you got to come back, because I feel like we're only scratching the surface, and
Yeah, absolutely.
there's more for you to share with us. I know. Riley, before we go, did you have something you want to?
Oh, just on the subject of psychedelics in general, just they're a tool, so it's like you wouldn't play with a chop saw, So it's a tool,
Right.
but it's a useful tool. I will say that. Right. Use it as you will.
One day we'll hear that story from you. I wish we had time tonight,
One day.
but one day. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Bigfoot Collectors Club. Again, I want to thank our guest, Adela Lavine. Adela, where can people find you should you choose to be found?
Yes, if I choose to be found. I do choose to be found. They can find me at Adela Lavine, ADelaLavine.com. And Adela Lavine is used on all the social media platforms. So
Awesome.
pretty easy.
Very cool. You can find us, Bigfoot Collectors Club, Instagram and Facebook, Bigfoot_C Club on Twitter. Have we been getting any calls, Riley? Have you been checking our voicemail?
There was a voicemail. We'll play it in the next episode.
All right, we'll play it in the next episode.
Call in, everybody.
And that number again is
310-597-4803.
awesome.
Bigfoot Hotline.
And make sure to write in with your listener stories, emails, questions, BigfootCollectorsClub@gmail.com. And everybody, happy Halloween, happy anniversary, guys. Happy birthday to the Bigfoot Collectors Club.
Yay.
Here's what's going to happen. Keeping with tradition of last year, between our episode 0 and episode 1, we are going to take a 2-week break. We will not be back with a brand new episode until... I believe November 14th. So we'll take a couple weeks off. In the meantime, I will definitely post something, a Patreon sampler from the past 6 months. So if you are not a Patreon listener, you will get something in your main feed only. You will get something new that you have not heard. And if you are a Patreon subscriber, I will be putting up a special collector's item episode for you guys next week as well. So every listener gets something new. We just will not be back with episode 47 for another couple weeks. Thank you for listening. We love you guys. Thank you for sticking with us for the first year. This is year 2 is going to be even better. We love you guys.
No doubt.
Thank
Say
you.
bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening.
And happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Bigfoot Collectors Club is produced by Riley Bray. Our theme song is Come Alone by Suneaters, courtesy of Lotuspool Records. If you like the show, please rate and review us on iTunes. It really helps get the podcast to more listeners. To support the show, check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Bigfoot Collectors Club and unlock multiple reward episodes every month.